the pressure of the sell me this pen, I think paints a picture of sales where an ideal outcome is you selling something to somebody that doesn't need it, which isn't the case, right? That's not a good long-term game to play.
Yeah, there has to be a mutual fit, right? It has to be more relationship-based. There has to be able to drive value. Data is a funny thing, right? And people like to manipulate data that will make them be looked at in a good light, that will make them look like they're, one of the top performing associates. The reality is today, right now, the best sales organizations and best sales teams utilize AI to a certain capacity for sure. Phone calls today still are the number one method on booking net new meetings in B2B sales. But
That's incredible.
81% of new meetings today are still booked via the phone.
You're listening to the Transformed with Data podcast with Graham Crawford, CEO of Crawford Macmillan. Graham is here to share something he's genuinely passionate about. He's going to show you how data can completely change the outcome for both people and businesses. In each episode, he sits down with real people who've done incredible things with data. But don't worry, these aren't your typical dry case studies. Graham and his guests bring you stories about leaders and innovators who saw something in their data that sparked a brand new reality. These are changes that tore through entire industries, upended company cultures, and sometimes even changed lives. So whether you're a data enthusiast or just curious about how to find the truth in your data, join Graham as he discovers how data becomes more than just numbers. It becomes the spark that ignites real, meaningful change. Let's get started. Thanks for listening.
Most sales teams chase tactics. The best ones, however, understand psychology. Asad Ali has spent 2 decades proving that behavioral science is not just academic, it's a revenue engine. He's helped over 50 companies scale, trained thousands of reps, and taught negotiation at the university level for 13 years. His secret? Transform sales from a guessing game into a system, and one where trust is measurable, where decision cycles are predictable, and AI becomes a multiplier instead of a threat. Today, we're unpacking the frameworks behind it all, from the data that predicts startup exits to the metrics that reveal whether your team will transform or flatline. Let's get into it. Here's Asad Ali. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Graham. Thanks for having me here today.
It's so great to have you on. And I know we've had a number of fantastic conversations about sales over the years. Can you just add to my background and give us a little bit of an insight into what you and the team do at Maestro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Maestro for the better part of 2 years now, but I know our founder and CEO, Will Fuentes, and I've been working for him for the past 20 on and off. And what we do here at Maestro is leverage organizational and industrial behavioral psychology on how humans make decisions faster. And at the core, using principles on speed, on different methods of effective follow-up, different ways of effectively communication, and bringing that all together on helping drive sales through the pipeline faster to have more success. The difference, I would tell you, between Maestro and other sales methodologies and other sales consultancy companies is that we use the framework DRIVE, which we'll talk about in a bit, but
Yeah.
it is to move a deal faster through the pipeline or to disqualify a deal faster, meaning that we don't coach people to just say yes to sales and that type of, sell me this pen and working through that type of methodology. It's used more in, helping humans make decisions faster to drive value for them in their organizations.
Yeah, I understand that, and that resonates with me for a couple of reasons. The pressure of the sell me this pen, I think paints a picture of sales where an ideal outcome is you selling something to somebody that doesn't need it, which isn't the case, right? That's not a good long-term game to play.
Yeah, there has to be a mutual fit, right? It has to be more relationship based. There has to be able to drive value. You'll hear me say that a lot probably here on the call today, where if you are able to drive value for the organization and for the individuals that you're working with, then you'll have a great foundation for repeatable business, for expansion and retention opportunities, right? For more of an ongoing business relationship versus something that is just transactional and happens one and done, which is not the way to win today in B2B sales. Most often, relationships are what matter the most when it comes to working with the people that you have on the other side of you, whether that's a software company, whether that's a consulting business, or anything alike in between.
And trust has become ever more important, and we will come back to our good friend AI, as it seems to be a regular feature on these episodes. We'll come back to our good friend AI in due course. But one of the things that fascinates me about the measurement of sales team, both from what I've learned from you as well as from reading and researching on my own, is the importance of what you're measuring. And you speak about the importance of disqualifying someone quickly. It is the case in some sales teams, is it not, that maybe representatives are incentivized to keep things in the pipeline or to keep potential deals in the pipeline? If, for example, I measured on how many active deals do you have, then I'm not incentivized to disqualify somebody quickly, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a more of an issue with the measurement itself, right? That's a top-down problem, because you nailed it. You're dead on. Quite often we work with thousands of reps that have number of deals in the pipeline that we're working on, number of opportunities that we're working on, all about the quantity more than the quality itself. When in reality, as a sales leader, if you're able to just take that next level of depth and focus on the last activity that the reps have done with any of their deals that are in their pipeline and the next step that is planned, those two things alone will be able to help you narrow down and quite often see what's real and what's not, what's actually of quality, what has the type of information that you need to be able to move a deal forward. Do you know who the decision makers are? Do you know the level of impact that this will have on the organization? Do you know the resources that are allocated for this type of service, this type of solution that customer might be looking for? Graham, quite often when you start to ask these very basic fundamental questions around key information that's uncovered, the less information that is uncovered, the more vitality the deal has, the more uncertainty you have in
Right.
terms of moving the deal forward. Whereas in reality, the more information you have, then you're actually able to have better recommendations for the client, for the person that you're doing in your sale. The reason that reps want to keep the volume there is because quite often most leaders aren't looking behind that first layer or that second layer. They're taking it at surface value. Oh, the volume looks great. This is a complete numbers game. And to a certain extent, sure, right? You'd obviously want more leads than not, right? More opportunities than not.
It never hurts, all right?
Never hurts to have more. But the reality is that when you have a culture where it's all about the volume, all about the number, sales reps fundamentally will do the least amount of work to make the most amount of money.
That's how they're incentivized, right?
That's and so if they have a good incentive, if they have a strong incentive to just have volume, number of leads, right, and they're working there, you will have reps that will have lot of leads, right? Constantly. When the level of depth is a little bit more about frequency of touch, the type of information that you're uncovering, the activities that you're actually doing based around to move this deal forward, and the incentives are driven around there. Meetings held versus meetings booked, as an easy example. Where you provide those incentives, the behaviors will follow.
One of the great contradictions, and I think it may have been you who taught me about this contradiction in the sales cycle, is a company that measures a close rate on qualified leads, which seems like a sensible thing to do on the surface, right? If you're going to pick a top level metric, then let's assess the salesperson on how effective they are at closing these qualifying leads. But the kicker is that the behavior that drives is the salesperson then to disqualify a load of leads that might actually have resulted in a sale because they're too concerned about protecting the close rate.
Yeah. Data is a funny thing, right? And people like to manipulate data that will make them be looked at in a good light, that will make them look like they're, one of the top performing associates. And quite often as sales leaders, when you start to look at, very, very granular things on, this person closes X amount versus this person closes X amount, you have to dig a little deeper, right? Because of exactly what you described. If I know that a deal is not going to close, but it's still worth me pursuing, versus if I don't understand if it's going to close yet, that might dictate how I display that in my pipeline, because I want to look good for my boss. I want to look good for my metrics and these kind of things too. The reality is that we should celebrate deals being disqualified, deals being lost more often than we do today, right? Quite often the sales leaders say, oh, well, what did we learn? What can we do better? Very valuable information, very, very valuable data in its own right to be able to find out. But a deal lost today is not a deal lost forever, right? It might not be the right timing for that prospect or for that business. They might still be doing their research and looking at alternatives, which is totally acceptable and recommended in the sales process, in B2B sales. Everybody's doing research today. Having that type of frame where it's, hey, just because we're not going to move forward on a deal or an opportunity today, doesn't mean that that it's the end of the world or that it's not going to close ever. And when we have a better sense of that within, our sales cultures and our teams, then we're not worried about our exact close rate percentage or our number. In fact, we're more worried about what our goals are for the quarter, how far along we are in terms of our meetings held, how far we are along in terms of our revenue closed, right? And the other things around those will sort themselves out.
Yeah, no, that's really useful insight on what good key performance indicators might be. One of the similarities we have in the work that we do is we will go in and propose changes to the way things are measured, propose measuring new things, propose positioning measures of success differently, which isn't always met with a clamor of joy, I will say, from some of the organizations that I work with. Do you find the same, and how do you navigate around that change management transformation piece when you are adjusting the way that sales teams are measured and managed?
Humans at their core are always going to be a little bit resistant to change. Then when you look at to organizations that have very sophisticated sales teams, right? A good understanding of their market, they have a good understanding of what they want to accomplish. Maybe they've had success already in terms of accomplishing certain revenue metrics and goals. Anybody that sees somebody from the outside coming in is always a little apprehensive, right? Because there's a little bit of an understanding on, well, my business is very unique. My clients are very niche, right? My vertical is very specific. To a certain extent, having the right type of messaging, extremely important. To have the right type of online presence, right? To have the right type of collateral that you're going to provide, all extremely important. But the reality is that when you have a process in sales, right? When you're asking the right type of questions, when you're uncovering information, when you have kind of like a good framework in place, right? Not a checklist, right? We're not in an industry where you can go one by one and you can ask certain things systematically, and then at the end of the day, it's going to kick out a nice recommendation for the client. The reality is that you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to uncover more information. And from my experience, when you come in with this type of approach, no matter how sophisticated a sales organization is, it would be hard for anybody to disagree with that, right? From an understanding on, hey, we're driving a process here. We're driving things that are repeatable. One of the biggest principles that we recommend is the art and science of practice, right? Different tools on how you can practice
Hmm.
things like question trees on preparing for a meeting, run of the show templates where you can run an internal meeting prior to a very important sales meeting where you have additional stakeholders, right? Where you have additional people from other departments joining the meetings, where you have people on your side, from a legal standpoint, from a finance standpoint. And so bringing that all back into the core sales individuals, the core sales leaders, if you come in from an outside perspective and it's just like, hey, my way or the highway, that also matters in terms of coaching and training adults. It has to be,
Yeah, of course.
it has to be able to be digestible. They have to be able to see value. And that's part of our job, right? Working with Maestro is to be able to understand that, hey, we're going to be substantially more successful if we are locked and armed together in what we want to
All of us, yeah.
versus anything being combative, right? And
Yeah, of course.
quite
All of
often,
us.
you've probably seen this in your own experience, Graham. That starts and ends with the outsider first, right? Being able to understand, establishing your own credibility, showing the value, right? We've worked with over 700 clients in our history with Maestro, right? We have a 97% retention rate. That's one of the things that I lead with on purpose.
That's incredible. That's a great piece of data, sir.
People like working with us, and they like working with us continuous over time. It's a credit to the people that work in the company, but saying that and establishing that early to me is 100% meant to disarm somebody. It's for them to understand on, you might not know me today, so it's my job to kind of bring my background, bring my expertise, but this is a collaboration.
Yeah, I did a negotiation course last year, and I think one of the pieces of guidance in that was, well, let's start by finding something that we can both agree on, or an objective that we both want to meet. And in the case of a sales team, that could be, we want your time to be put to better use so that you're more efficient, so that the company can generate more sales, so that you can get higher commissions. That seems like something we can agree on, right? Going in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? And follow the money. Money is always an easiest way to find common ground with sales professionals, just because most sales professionals have a good understanding of the incentives involved in what we do, in the amount of work. Most sales professionals also understand that people not in sales think sales is a lot easier than it is. People in product always think that the product is the greatest thing since sliced
Of
bread,
course.
can sell itself. People in marketing always have a great, strong feeling on impressions and engagements, right? The reality is that you need all of it to be able to drive sales, but sales in its own right has its own unique process. I think finding common ground like that with sales professionals, to me, is always what is most successful.
An approach to that I've heard that I'd love your thoughts on. I've heard that in the world of sales and marketing, or sales versus marketing as it turns into, sometimes that there can be a a tendency for muds to get thrown over the fence at each other. The leads who aren't of high enough quality, the sales aren't closing hard enough, whatever it might be. And I've heard an approach where you combine the incentives of those two teams and instead have a customer acquisition team where sales and marketing work in tandem. Have you seen that happening out in the field?
I've seen variations of it. Most organizations know that sales and marketing need to work together. Very few do it very well. Here's what ends up happening is the sales side looks at it and is like, where are our inbound leads, right? Where are the leads that are supposed to be coming to us? And marketing is, on the other side, and I'm making a little fun of it, but it's like, well, you didn't do anything with the last leads that we brought you, right? And you gotta have that like that little bit of behind the scenes, even if people don't say it, right? That type of dynamic, right? Well, it's like when I bring you the leads, are you ready to go? And it's like, well, we need the leads to be able to do so. And the best teams that have the most success, Graham, right? When it comes to exactly what you described, is that where marketing is invited to weekly sales pipeline meetings, forecast meetings, and vice versa. And the visibility is what is needed for the collaboration. Meaning, I'm now I'm in sales. I'm a director. I'm going through a large B2B enterprise sale. I need a very important piece of collateral or maybe a presentation for my next meeting. Maybe both, right? In that case. If I just independently take that siloed, go over to marketing, say, hey, I need a pitch deck, there's not any type of emotion or anything that's going to provoke. If you have somebody really good on marketing, they're going to provide you what you need. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to get you an asset or two. The other side of it is that if I'm in sales and I have the director of marketing on our sales forecast call, and I'm telling them about the specific opportunity, I'm telling them about Graham, I'm telling them about your organization, I'm telling them how many conversations we've had, what's important for you to see, how I believe my product and my solution is going to be a perfect fit, but I need to tell that story a little bit better, right? Based on what we currently have today. The person on marketing side is going to look at that and actually have that feeling and that understanding, the level of depth on, okay, this is what Assad needed. This is what it's going on. I probably maybe even have a slide or two that would work well for this. Maybe he hasn't seen. Different types of things start to, be put out there into the universe, and then the collaboration happens really well. And I think that's at its core where the disconnect still is with marketing and with sales is it can't be, well, I need this and you need that, and you're not delivering or you're not providing me more leads or the leads aren't as great, whatever the case may be. There's going to be a world where leads are, they can always be better. They can always be more, right? And you could talk to 1,000 CEOs. Nobody's going to tell you they want less leads for the sales team, right?
I mean, would there be an argument to make of like, it depends how well qualified they are, right? If there's a lot of
Totally.
unqualified leads, it might end up wasting time.
But and a salesperson definitely at your core definitely has that feeling. Well, it's got to be quality of leads, right? And I think to get better quality, to have the quality that the sales team is looking for, having that visibility, but having them actually involved in the opportunities. The best sales pipeline meetings, forecast meetings that are run are quickly going through the last thing that we've done with this particular client or prospect, the next step that we have planned, and frankly, what you need sourced from the rest of the team, whether that's on sales or from marketing or anybody else for that matter, to help move the deal forward. And when marketing, to me, when marketing, no matter who they are, it could be a marketing intern, associate, director, CMO, the more information that marketing has into the depth on level of wanting to help close sales, everybody wants to help close more sales, but it has to be a two-way street. You have to be able, from the sales side, to put emotional deposits in just as much as you make withdrawals, right? People do things more for people that they like and they feel have an investment into them as well with marketing. So
We mentioned the Drive framework earlier. People may be familiar with the BANT framework. That's certainly one that I've come to know and use and love. With BANT being first, B, budget. Does the company have the budget required to pay for the services that they're inquiring about? A, authority. Does the person I'm speaking to have the authority to sign the deal? And need. Is there a need? Back to our original point about value. Will value be derived from the delivery of these services in the organization? And T, timelines. So what's the timeline? So can you give us a quick, I was going to say run through of the Drive framework, but maybe a drive through of the Drive framework and what some of the key differences are and how that is a helpful advantage for you in the work that you do?
totally, what you'll see with BANT, and there's a few other frameworks in terms of sales that have commonality, right? Well, similarities, I would say, but D, decision, R, resources, I, impact, V, velocity, and E for expectations, right? And so if we go in, each letter of drive has two levels to them. So if we're talking decision, who is the decision maker? How is the decision made? Okay. Is it by committee? Is there different vote? Is there different discussions that are around? How just exploring what you want to uncover on that side. Resources, you have budget and you have human resources. Right. And quite often that could be an individual that's in charge of the particular project, how they're influencing and then the money aside from it, right? Velocity, I'm talking about timeline. So if you're comparing even to band, what is the expected timeline? And then why that date? Right. So what's important about that date? So you can almost kind of work your way backwards, right? And kind of making sure that you're planning and getting things done. Expectations, right? This is a little different from all of the other letters, right? Where our expectations is about what's a personal win for the person you're talking to versus the
Okay.
organization as a whole. So
Oh, that's an interesting one.
how would that look for that person bringing this solution in, right? How does that change their day to day? Does it make their life easier? How does that make them look the best that they can? What is a win for that individual, right? And what are the potential roadblocks that are maybe coming down the road that we maybe haven't discussed or uncovered here today? What you'll see in terms of commonalities is uncovering more information, avoiding last minute surprises, right?
Of course.
Having forecasting a little bit more accuracy, being able to actually see. To me, the most important letter in Drive is always going to be impact. What type of impact is this going to have on the organization? And then the better question is, what happens if they don't move forward with our solution?
I'm a big fan of that question.
Yeah. How is that going to look? What's it going to look like, right? Because constantly, Graham, what we're fighting against in sales, yes, competition, right? Yes, budgetary constraints, but it's always about the status quo, right? That's typically what people are always fighting against. If I do nothing, if I stay the same, right? What's going to happen? And people, humans, you are 2 times more likely to make a decision to avoid a negative outcome rather than to achieve a positive outcome. And I'll give you an example. If I told you, Graham, you need to be able to eat healthy and you need to be able to exercise constantly because it's best for your health. You wouldn't disagree with me, but that wouldn't probably motivate you to go to the gym right after our call here today. You would probably just continue going about your day. If I said, Graham, if you don't start eating better and you don't start working out, you're on the verge of a heart attack. Now you're significantly more likely to want to avoid that pain and move more towards the positive benefit in that example. It's no difference in sales when it comes to organizations. People are significantly more likely to just let things go by unless it's to avoid that feeling of that pain that they can have.
Yeah, I've learned this myself. I think the way I've heard it phrased is it's easier to sell a painkiller than it is to sell a vitamin.
Well said.
Yeah,
I'm stealing
absolutely
that one.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's all yours. We share here. We're a team. We talked about some things shared by sales and marketing, and I want to shift it back to a place where we promised to revisit for the listeners, and that place is AI. So one of the things that sales and marketing have in common from my outside of the specialism perspective is that I get hundreds of DMs all the time of people promising to be able to do through automation or AI capabilities of their own, bring me millions of leads or double the quality of my leads or run everything and completely transform my company with something that's completely driven by AI. So the fantasies out there, and I think AI has made the average level of marketing quality increase. I think that's my perspective. What it has not done is made the average level of quality of delivery increase. So I still see a big gap there. So we know the sales fantasy on the billboards and on the DMs and on the LinkedIn. Can you ground that in some reality? AI is incredibly useful technology. I can imagine it must have added value in some areas from both a sales and marketing perspective. So with sales in particular, what have you seen within the companies that you work with or your own company, places where AI has added efficiency, has made teams more effective, and is making a difference?
It's one of the hottest topics where 2 letters can create such a huge cloud of AI, right? Are you using AI? How are you using AI? If you're not using AI, you're going to get behind. And all these different types of things that, create some fear, create some doubt, create some uncertainty. The reality is today, right now, the best sales organizations and best sales teams utilize AI to a certain capacity for sure.
Right.
So high level, my first thoughts is AI is going to automate things like reporting, right? It's going to automate a lot of tasks. Humans are always going to create belief. Humans are always going to create rapport and relationships. The best sales teams utilize AI. They don't rely on it for everything. I also think that we would be not giving enough credit to the impact on how certain sales teams are using AI because it has to come from the top down, meaning the best organizations have corporate licenses for their AI tools. They're not letting their individual sales reps and directors and leaders all have their own chat GPT accounts and having
Just run wild.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of different places, right? From a security and a compliance standpoint, you have to start there, right? And actually incorporating corporate licenses and structure so then the whole team can actually benefit from what you're doing with AI. If you and I were working at the same organization and we're both utilizing, again, I'll use GPT as an easy example. If we're both utilizing that simple of a service, but we're not sharing what we're both uploading and what we're providing, the assets that we're recommending, we're doing a disservice just to you and I alone, right? On being able to kind of crowdsource our information. But strategic thinking and complex negotiation, you're going to want to be able to utilize any type of information. You're going to want to be able to have quickest way in your fingertips, but you're still never going to be able to replace, to me, a human on what you're doing. There are amazing tools that have supercharged a lot of sales efforts that we believe in work the best in today's sales environment. For example, phone calls today still are the number one method on booking net new meetings in B2B sales. But
That's incredible.
81% of new meetings today are still booked via the phone. Okay. And for us, with the reps that we coach a lot of different BDRs and SDR associates, kind of entry level on making phone calls and creating business development opportunities for their teams. Mike Vallada on our team, our chief client officer, he's probably exploring and looking and getting a demo of any and every AI tool there is, probably on average 3 to 5 per week, to be aware on what's out there, to be aware on the improvements things are being made, to be aware on integrations that can increase your CRM activity or track your calls a little easier and things like that. One of the tools that we've fallen in love with that gives a good example of what we're talking about is any type of power dialer. There's a few different companies that do them and do them well today.
Okay.
But
And what do they do?
simply taking the art of making phone calls and making it substantially easier and scaling that for you. So the reps that we coach and we train today, Graham, they make 500 phone calls a day, and
A day.
every day.
A day.
The way
I can imagine that used to be a tough weekly target even before technology like that.
absolutely, it would just from a the time of making the phone, making the dials, right, sorting your lists and things like that. Today, these type of AI tools have made it where they're integrating with the different data set tools like Zoom Info of the world, where you're getting all that data on your ICP info that who you want to be targeting for your calls.
Mhm.
And they're making 5 calls at a time for you and only connecting you to the business and the rep that answers once they're connected on the phone dial. The average BDR that we coach in a 2.5 to 3 hour time frame is able to make all of these calls, have all of their information logged, have it all nicely readily available on a dashboard where you as a sales leader could go in at any time. You could click on any one of the calls. You could listen to the call live right there in the dashboard,
Yeah.
right? And you're able to see the total metrics on what's being happening and what's being booked.
Yeah, you can see the length of the call, you can see the answer rate, you can
You
see
can bring
all
that
sorts.
rep on right then and there to do a live coaching moment, listen to the call together, right? Coach in the moment and get better. So all of these things that we were all doing anyways, right? Coaching and listening to a call isn't something new in sales, right? Making the volume of calls, while it might be difficult, calling was always there. But AI has increased and enhanced these things. The easiest next step right out of that is, okay, great. Now I have these amazing demos. I always want to be able to do call recaps, right? And I always want to be very thorough. I want to make sure we didn't forget anything. There's a million different note takers out there in the world today. There's different AI transcripts, all these different things that can make it easier for any sales rep to look significantly more polished, to have more of a process, right? And different tools can help with different things. There's even from the marketing standpoint, right? There's a company in the DC area called Make Media, I'm a big fan of, that helps take messaging from anywhere from C-level executives to anywhere from the reps doing posting from a marketing standpoint and you can literally just talk an interview with their software for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Coming out of that, just by you talking about your business, what you do, your ICP, it will then create out blogs for you. It will create out postings that you can put on LinkedIn, right? It can help create content for you just by hearing your voice and you talking about things and being able to kind of digest that and make that easier for content. So there's many different that we, just from scratching the surface, but there's amazing AI tools at top of the funnel, like the power dialers. There's amazing AI tools that as you're getting clients deeper through your sales funnel, follow up recaps, different types of information you can provide, creating assets for them. There's a tip and a trick in an AI tool for every part of your sales process. Not to mention then when they become a client and now you're working on different account management types of ways and different ways to stay in communication, utilizing AI tools for your benefit is the way to go. And we didn't even talk about different ways from a BD standpoint. There's a new tool that I'll plug here. It's free. It's called Bordy, and it is a full.
Oh, I've met Bordy.
I
Yeah.
met Bordy as well, and I'm impressed. Bordy's texting me leads in the morning based on my geographic area information I provided. I'm somebody where you started this conversation. I will read the LinkedIn message and see, oh, we're gonna create this. I'm not even finishing reading the message. I'm the most skeptical at anybody doing anything to make it easier for you in sales because I've seen and heard a lot of different things that overpromise and underdeliver. Today, in today's environment, piecing different tools that do what they do best and is what I would recommend.
Yeah, we should talk a bit more about Bordy for those who haven't tried it. It's an AI, I'd say, introduction network or an AI introduction person, and Bordy is this somewhat sarcastic but yet still charming Australian AI who you talk to on the phone about some of the things you mentioned, who you are, what you're trying to achieve, what your biggest challenges are, who your ideal client is. And then Bordy, in a very discerning way, I might say, I would kudos to the team behind it. Bordy's very discerning about who he recommends introductions for. He seeks two-way approval before actually making the introduction, and then sets you up. I had one this morning, Assad, actually, which is why Bordy is so front of mind to me. And I said, "Oh, I've updated my ICP a little since we last talked," and I emailed back. And sure enough, they said, Bordy is an AI. I should be clear for everyone.
Yes, we're
Bordy
talking about
emailed
me
back
for a
and
third
said,
party that-
"Oh, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Like, we can update the people I'm introducing you to." So they've raised a bunch of funding and are doing really well out of it. But it's taking the same principle as your multi-call dialer, I think, and doing the same thing. So Bordy might be offering introductions to you or to me to maybe 10 different people, and maybe only one of them accepts. But in doing so, that's a great piece of qualification that's happened there that has saved 9 phone calls from happening that may have just led to nothing. So it's yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll shift my ICP and I'll run an experiment outside. I'll change my ICP around and make it more around business development, see if Bordy chooses to introduce us or not.
That'd be interesting. It's the reason that I like a tool like Bordy and anyone else is like this. We measure at Maestro 3 different ways on impact that we can provide in an organization, right? You want shorter sales cycles. We reduce short sales cycles by 28%, close deals faster. You want larger deal sizes, right? The clients that we work with have had increasing deal sizes of 31%, and then higher conversion, close. One of the ones that we were talking about earlier with the metrics, closing more business. If you utilize a tool like Bordy at top of the funnel, you utilized Fathom Note Taker to increase different ways on getting recaps done significantly faster. All of these things are all micro conversions that are all feeding into these numbers, right? There's never going to be a silver bullet, is what I'll tell you in sales in general, from even what we coach on how to get more deals closed.
There's rarely a silver bullet in anything, which I think is a lesson a lot of entrepreneurs, salespeople, SaaS platform owners, fitness enthusiasts, everyone, all humans need to learn that the silver bullet doesn't exist, and the people can expend a lot of time looking for it.
And I think that's what I would love for your audience to take away from this is that it's that there are a lot of really good tools that can help make you better, different tools to practice. There's a website we recommend that's called gotensai.com, free website, and it literally will help you practice what we call question trees. Just quite literally mapping out if-then type of scenarios. When I ask this question, what are the type of responses that I get, right? And you start mapping those out. And if I ask this question, what are the type of responses? Well, then what would be a great question to follow up with after that and after that? It reminds me of the R.L. Stein Goosebump books, where people used to have like choose your own journey on where you're going,
I know the ones, yeah.
right? And if you'd like to go down here, follow, go to page 10. If you're not, keep reading, right? It's the same thing in terms of practicing and anticipating things in sales, right? When you're asking different questions, you want to anticipate responses, you want to practice. This tool that I'm recommending has nothing to do with AI. It's just a great web tool where you can continue to practice. And I'd be wary of that as well too. Don't ever just start signing up for every single amazing AI tool out there just because it's AI and what it's doing. It still requires a level of vetting and diligence. And at the end of the day, practice is going to trump all on what we're doing, with if it can make it easier and automate the things that you're doing on a pen and paper, great, right? But still fundamentally look into the quality of what we're doing with AI, because to me, it's on the model today of what you saw early on with like Lyft and Uber, where it's going to be very cheap or free in a lot of cases, but those premiums are going to start to go up on a lot of the very basic services, that some of these companies are offering today.
Yeah, I would agree. And chasing every squirrel is never a good idea, because there are so many new ones and so many updates. And as you said, your colleague Michael is doing his best to keep up, but they're changing all the time. They're adding new features and functions. I mean, even solely in the capacity of large language models, there's some that are better than others for certain tasks. And I
Absolutely.
think there's a crib sheet of that. But then, is that going to be the same in 2 months? Probably not, because they all react and respond to each other. It's a very interesting time. But I want to just hop back to something you said that caught my attention as a data professional, just to help people understand the potential impact of this back on the sales cycle. So if you reduce total cycle time by 28%, if you grow deal size by 31%, if you increase close rate by 10%, those all sound like small numbers, but the combination of all of those three things, I imagine, can have quite outrageous impacts,
Yeah, yeah, and
because they compound each other, right?
they feed all into each other, right? And what most sales professionals do is, even the best ones, even the best sales professionals that have great relationship building activity, is they won't control what, something fundamentally we call with maestros, like the pace. Speed is our ethos, right? And that does not mean, following up and following up and following up. Everybody's been on the other side of that sales experience where you feel like they're, maybe overburdening and coming on too strong. We coach and we train around the balance and the science on professional persistence, but more than anything, making it easier for the other person to work with you. Simple things on how to schedule the simplest and easiest way, providing 3 time slot windows for the person that you're booking with to make it easier for them to be able to book a meeting, because everybody gets busy, right? I mentioned call recaps maybe 3 or 4 times earlier. Every single call you do in sales should be followed up with some type of a professional recap that
Right.
outlines next steps, very clear on what you need to do or what I need to do to be able to kind of keep moving things forward, right? And when you have all of these things kind of adding up, where I'm quick on my response, I'm providing time windows that are in the next 24, 48, and 72 hours for us to be able to meet. I'm doing what I said I'm going to do. That alone, now you're in the top 10 percentile of sales professionals,
On trust build alone, trust and follow through.
because you're starting to build that credibility and you're starting to build that trust. And you're gonna have to continue to do it, but that's how it begins and that's how it starts. And sales has had the experience of the other side. Oh, this person hasn't gotten back to me all the time. Oh, well, I'm not busy. I'm not available when they ask me to, or they ask me when am I free, and now I'm providing slots in a week or in 2. And all of these small things either delay time, right, or they make me think, hey, maybe I should start with a smaller deal or an opportunity with this company or this client versus going for what I need. All of these things can create self-doubt, doubt within an organization as they're weighing options. All of these things matter, and they all stack up on one another, right? And they start to build what we call in sales momentum in sales. Sales is like physics, just like anything else, right? A deal in motion stays in motion, right? A deal at rest dies, right? And it's no different from all of these different things in terms of activity and things that you can control, right, to be able to move a deal forward.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I was wondering to myself about some of the attributes that make for a good salesperson, but I want to reframe the question differently, because there's a lot of folks coming out of college or in their teenage years, kind of planning a career and thinking what my option's going to be. AI is going to change the landscape so much on these things. Sales, as we've covered today, will always have a human element in it. There's a lot of psychology at play, not only in how you interact with potential clients and prospects, but also how you manage your own process. So what one or two good attributes make for a good salesperson? Because it's perceived as a tough job, for I would say, from outside of as one of those outsides, that many people would say, oh, I'm not, I don't know, outgoing enough, or I don't like rejection, so it's not for me, which I think are kind of surface level objections that can go past. So what are some of the key attributes that a great potential future salesperson with no sales experience, who doesn't go around cold calling people every day, that you would look for and encourage people to consider sales as a career?
Yeah, two major ones. Number one, the ability to ask great questions. The best sales professionals, no matter what they are selling, ask amazing open-ended questions. They have a good understanding and a balance on being able to listen after they ask these questions and actually understand what it is that person is saying. Most people are terrible listeners. We're quite often waiting for to ask our next question, or we're maybe thinking about what's for dinner tonight, or we're thinking about what we had just finished eating this morning, or what the next person is saying. But quite often, we're not truly listening. And the
Yeah.
best sales professionals ask amazing questions. They truly listen, and they connect back what they've uncovered and they've unheard to provide a solution for the needs there. So number one would be asking questions. Number 1A, right? I'd say equally as important,
Equal first.
being authentic. If I came into sales and I tried doing it your way, or even like Will's way, our CEO within Maestro, he's a very outgoing individual. He's great at what he does. He's the best salesperson I've ever met in my life, just because of his process, his commitment to excellence, how he prepares, how he does things, and then how he delivers them. I can prepare the same way, I can do it the same way, but it's going to be my authentic way, the way that I need to come off.
Absolutely.
If I tried to emulate Will and act like Will in front of you, you'll sniff it out in a second without knowing me at all, because it won't come off authentic. It won't come off as who I am. You'll start to maybe question, is he saying what he thinks I want to hear? Right? All of these different types of things too. So you have to be authentic in who you are in your approach. So when people are like, oh, I'm not as outgoing or anything like that or anything, I've seen very reserved people be amazing at sales. I've seen people who don't like to give speeches in front of, thousands of people, who prefer smaller group interactions, be some of the best sales leaders I've ever worked and interacted with, because they have a great process. They're authentic to themselves. They work on their craft. They're practicing asking great questions. And when you have all of those things kind of come together, those two things will always stand out. Is that person really truly asking more information? And is that who they are? Are they being authentic to who they are?
Yeah, the description you gave of Will, who I've had the pleasure of seeing in action, of course, it might be the image that people have stereotypically of a salesperson, but then some of the qualities you talked about in terms of asking questions, understanding the process, working with, like, are actually more typically introverted qualities. So I think today, amongst other things, we've kind of shattered the myth that introverts can't be great salespeople, because I'm sure you have many, you've come across many in your time.
Yeah, there's no question that some of the best sales professionals I ever worked with, and some of the most introverted people in the world. They don't want to do water cooler talk and talk about sports. They want to talk about process. They want to talk about what's going on in their business and their deals. And that's what, if that is what is authentic to you, then that will benefit you tenfold down the road.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of things today that I'm sure people are interested to find out more about. Where should people go if they're listening and think, this sounds awesome, I want to learn more? Like, I'm sure you have a website and perhaps maybe a conference coming up that you could talk to people about
Yeah.
if they want to learn more.
Yeah, thanks for the alley oop there. We have an upcoming Maestro Revenue Summit. It's a smaller variation of a conference, so we wanted to make it more intimate and call it a summit. About 100, when I'm saying smaller, about 100 tech CEOs from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We do have some that come from all over, but at least either the companies are based in the area or them as individuals typically are based in the area as well. And about 40 to 50 account executives, customer success, leadership, and I call them sales professionals as well, right? All within that mix. It's free. It's October 20th to 22nd at the National Union Building in Washington, D.C. Our website is maestromomentum.com. And again, all you have to do is just register on the website, and it's free. And drive a lot of value at the event. We actually have many seminars dedicated to the best ways to utilize AI in your sales process.
Oh,
A lot of the different tools that we touched on here today between you and I, best practices, negotiations, and anything in terms of B2B sales and closing deals faster.
well, as folks may have guessed on the Alley-Oop, I went along last year and got a whole lot of value and had a tremendous time at the Maestro conference. So thoroughly recommend it. And if bonuses are not needed, but as an additional value bonus, anyone who goes along there, I'll be there as well. So look forward to
Breakfast is on
catching up.
Graham for at least one of the days. And
At least one of them. At least one of them.
we're excited to have you as our partner. And honestly, for everybody here, that's where you and I met. We met at our first conference earlier this year, and I've been lucky enough to have a great relationship with you now for months and months. And at the minimum, you will meet other great people that can connect with you, that could be potential customers, that could be potential partners, and at the minimum, just being great friends in your network like you and I.
A fabulous audience and a fabulous set of conversations, much like this one. So thanks so much for coming on and having it with me and sharing all of that wonderful insight about the world of sales that hopefully is of great use to the folks who are listening.
Thank you for having
So
me.
thanks very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Transformed with Data. If today's conversation gave you even one insight, one aha moment, or one new idea to take action on, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep asking the right questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep transforming with data.